Hey everyone, this is Stephen Chad, clinical naturopath and nutritionist in Sydney. I just got about halfway through my video, but I'm just going to start all over again because I just want to keep it all in one and I don't want to miss any key information as this is such a huge, important and interesting topic. So tonight I'm just going to briefly as I can, highlight the effects of heavy metal toxicity and the importance of safely and effectively detoxifying these from the body. It's such an important topic, hugely overlooked by doctors and some of us in complementary medicine. To be honest, when I first studied and trained in this field, we touched on the effects of heavy metals and testing that's available, but understanding now the impact that heavy metal toxicity can have on our health on a much larger scale, I'm surprised it wasn't emphasized as a more really foundational thing to be looking at and ruling out via testing. Because if you have heavy metal toxicities, it doesn't really matter what supplements you're taking or protocols you're on, they'll become a band-aid until you treat the heavy metals. It's something I've decided I now routinely assess almost every client for when they come with many vague, chronic, unexplainable symptoms or illnesses. Because heavy metals are not only incredibly toxic, but they prevent the absorption of minerals in the body, such as zinc and iron and magnesium. So if you're taking supplements that are supposed to be helping with your mental health and improving your energy levels and digestion, and nothing's really changing, I'd be seriously looking into testing for heavy metals. So heavy metal toxicity, it's basically when heavy metals build up and accumulate in the body, and our body's natural detoxification mechanisms cannot handle the burden of these and therefore cannot excrete them efficiently, and they get stored in organs such as the brain, which is a massive problem. It is a huge issue. It's a huge issue globally due to the times we're living in and our exposure to a range of heavy metals found in the environment and our food chain. I mean, let alone, I'm not even talking about other environmental chemicals and pesticides. I'm just referring to heavy metals for tonight, but it's all just such a huge load on our digestion and they affect our genetic expression. It's a really huge issue globally in these times. The more clients I work with and the more people I speak to, both outside of clinic and online, so many people are experiencing things such as chronic fatigue, unexplained fatigue. They've tried supplements, they've had testing done by their GP and their specialist and have been told that they should be fine, that nothing's wrong on paper. You may have severe anxiety and panic attacks. I mean, quite a lot of people who experience these, or chronic depression that hasn't responded to typical treatments. You may have hormonal imbalances, particularly estrogen-dominant conditions such as endometriosis or fibroids, might have a thyroid disorder or autoimmune disorder. Autoimmunity and heavy metals, like a huge undeniable link. Digestive disorders, behavioural disorders in children especially. Basically, heavy metal toxicity can affect us in so many ways, especially in the realms of mental health and cognitive health. Conditions such as Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, because heavy metals can accumulate and lodge in parts of the brain and other organs. And it's what drives so many chronic health conditions we experience today. And heavy metals, it's just not really something that's looked at or addressed in depth in the kind of conventional medical model. It's a huge issue. I can't emphasize this enough, because when we ingest heavy metals via food or the environment, the metals are rapidly removed from our blood and shunted straight into tissue storage sites like the heart, the brain, kidneys, the liver, even the bone marrow. Lead gets stored in bone marrow quite easily, which is why you can see a lot of kids who have chronic iron deficiency and behavioural disorders. So these metals just basically completely disrupt all the biochemical pathways and enzyme systems, which lead to chronic inflammation and oxidative stress. So just sit back for a moment and let it sink in that basically the accumulation of heavy metals it can lead to a variety of mental health issues that mimic psychiatric symptoms. So, for example, having excess lead can cause significant memory and cognitive symptoms. Learning disabilities in children can cause headaches, fatigue. Lead disturbs the balance of a neurotransmitter called GABA. GABA, because the lead converts GABA to be converted back to an excitatory or stimulating neurotransmitter called glutamate, which drives a lot of anxiety and insomnia and panic. So lead prevents GABA from working. Mercury can cause depression, anxiety, can cause allergies. Through a number of mechanisms, these metals are basically highly neurotoxic and cause degradation and destruction of our nerve cells in the brain and nerve cells throughout the body. So we're really missing the point if we're throwing medications at people like antidepressants who think they have some kind of genetic chemical imbalance and, you know, it's really that simple, when there are in fact identifiable things such as heavy metal toxicity that are potentially driving their symptoms. You've got to deal with the underlying cause. So heavy metals are responsible. What they can do also is they poison something in our cells called the mitochondria. So mitochondria are known as our tiny little energy factories within our cells. The mitochondria are responsible for producing the body's energy currency from the foods that we eat. So when you have damaged mitochondria and you can't make energy, this is a core driver of chronic fatigue syndrome due to mitochondrial dysfunction. And there are other conditions linked to mitochondrial dysfunction. These include fibromyalgia, autism spectrum disorder, some cardiovascular diseases, just to name a few. So another area where heavy metals must be addressed is for anyone in the world with Peyronie's disorder, MTHFR, because first of all, with Peyronie's disorder is basically, it's a manifestation of mostly psychiatric symptoms that are being driven by oxidative stress in the body. So you can't just take supplements or compounded medications and not address what's driving the oxidative stress in the body, when many people in fact have toxic levels of heavy metals that are driving their symptoms. It's the same with people with MTHFR. Many people think MTHFR is as simple as taking an activated B vitamin supplement to address they have a genetic predisposition to not being able to convert their B vitamins properly and then make neurotransmitters and express their DNA properly. But if you're someone with severe inflammation and oxidative stress, if this is you, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. When you take these supplements, you have a severe worsening of anxiety or insomnia or mania. This is because due to heavy metal toxicity or having high copper that haven't been addressed, you can't handle these methyl supplements yet until the pathways are clear and the enzyme systems are functioning properly, because heavy metals disrupt enzyme systems in the body and wreak havoc. So I just want to highlight where these metals are coming from, as it's a common query amongst people when this topic is brought up. So mercury toxicity, many of you may know that it can be caused by mercury amalgam fillings, which are pretty much being phased out. But many people still have amalgam fillings, and it's really important, if you do, that you consider working with an experienced biological dentist who can safely remove these for you. Because, I mean, you don't want mercury in tiny amounts being absorbed via your bloodstream and then deposited into these organs such as the brain. That's just a major cause of neuroinflammation and neurotoxicity. Not good. Coal-fired power stations are a huge source of mercury. So coal is formed from the deposition of plant material from millions of years ago. These plants have absorbed metals, have absorbed mercury and cadmium and other heavy metals from the air, from volcanic activity. So these plants die, are compressed into heat, compressed further into brown or black coal, and then we dig up the coal and put it into power stations to fire boilers. And then all these metals just get released back into the atmosphere again, and the cycle continues. So depending on your geographical location, the soil will have varying amounts of heavy metals in them. Many of you would know that fish, depending on the fish, are a huge source of mercury. So the main culprits are large fish like flake, shark, and swordfish are the worst. Tuna can be a problem if you're having a lot, like a tin a day. 1 to 2 a week should be fine. Not well recognized source of mercury is flounder. Flounder lives in the shallow waters, gobbles up everything off the bottom of the ocean. I wouldn't be going near flounder. Also whale and dolphin meat. I'm not sure if it's that popular here, but they are loaded with mercury. They're mammals. They can't excrete mercury. It gets stored into their tissue. If anyone's seen the documentary The Cove, which is about dolphin hunting and slaughtering that occurred in Taiji in Japan, who were selling fish, but it was actually dolphin meat to the locals and kind of causing some pretty serious issues with mercury toxicity. So another heavy metal is arsenic. So arsenic behaves a bit like mercury. As I mentioned before, it's like a mitochondrial poison. It can get into the mitochondria, which produce energy for us, and it causes mitochondrial dysfunction, which, as I mentioned, can lead to chronic fatigue and issues with cardiovascular health and autism spectrum. So arsenic mostly comes from rice. Again, it depends on the geographical location of where you're getting your rice. From what I've learned, any rice from Bangladesh or West Bengal in India, I wouldn't be using. Potentially also Thailand may have some issues with arsenic in the rice. Australian rice is generally much safer to use. It's a problem because the rice bioaccumulates arsenic from the soil and the waters that they've used to irrigate. So yeah, just try and source Australian rice, preferably organic, soak it, run it underwater for a minute after you've soaked it. Just try and get rid of any kind of environmental chemicals that may be in the rice. Lead. Lead is a huge issue. The principal source of lead up until 2002 is to come from supergrade petrol. It's known as tetraethyl lead. So when that evaporates, people breathe it in. And again, it gets absorbed into the bloodstream and then immediately shunted into organs and, in lead's case, bone marrow. So anyone before 2002 may most probably have accumulated lead, especially if you lived in cities or near main roads and freeways. We're exposed to a lot more supergrade petrol fumes, largely ends up in the bone, but also in some soft tissue like brain tissue. Kids are especially susceptible to the effects of lead. So it is a really huge problem. I'd definitely be making sure you're drinking filtered tap water. There's been many reports over the past 5 years or so. I've even seen in the news about there being the levels of lead in Sydney drinking water being too high. So just, yeah, filtered water is super important. Lead has also been found in a lot of traditional Chinese medicine and Ayurvedic medicine. So if you're working with one of these practitioners, I'd just be making sure they're qualified Australian practitioners who are sourcing their medicines from reputable companies. Like, don't be ordering these Ayurvedic or TCM supplements online. Old tap fittings can leach lead into water. It is generally recommended, if you're using tap water, to let it run for at least 60 seconds before using it for consumption or cooking. Paint that contained lead was phased out in 1970, but there is theoretically a problem if you're renovating and sanding down the walls of a house without having kind of top-grade breathing apparatus, and because you can potentially be breathing in the lead that someone painted on the walls of that house before 1970. Cadmium is another heavy metal which you may be exposed to if you are around a lot of diesel fume. So if you're living on a main road or freeway, or you are a cyclist and you are on the road exposed to the air quite frequently. But the major source of cadmium is cigarette smoking, either your own cigarette smoking or second-hand smoking. It's a huge source of cadmium. And when cadmium is stored in the body, it becomes highly carcinogenic. So yeah, I mean, it's the ultimate in preventative medicine to find out if you have any of these heavy metal issues. And so when you know, you can then know how to detoxify them safely. Aluminium is another heavy metal that comes back a lot on testing, which can come from kind of mainstream deodorants, spray deodorants that people use. A lot of people these days know and are using a lot of natural deodorants that are aluminium free. Can also be from aluminium cookware, so try and avoid those as well. So there's some really general everyday tips for reducing exposure. Don't live on a main road or a freeway, and don't exercise or run along a main road or a freeway. Go out to a bush or a park. You're basically running through a toxic field of metals and pollutants and deeply inhaling these. Filtered water, again, a must-have. There's just so many issues with heavy metals and other stuff in the drinking water. Eat organic where you can, local if you can't get organic, regardless of, if you get organic or local or not, just food from any supermarket. Try and soak it all in a tub of water in the kitchen sink with a dash of apple cider vinegar for at least 10 minutes, just to remove pesticide and chemical residues effectively. Chlorella it's a very dark green microalgae, which is super high source of chlorophyll. It's like the green plant pigment you'll see in plants. And chlorophyll is quite gentle and effective at dealing with mercury and getting mercury out of the body. And it's full of other essential minerals that are essential to cellular health and help with detoxification and the liver and the bowels. There's a supplement out there on the market which is an Australian supplement called algatine. Algatine it's a marine phytoplankton. It's got a green plant pigment, the chlorophyll again, and also orange pigments, which are known as carotenoids. So these are the plant chemicals found in carrot, apricot, peaches, bananas. So the carotenoids act as antioxidants and the chlorophyll acts as a heavy metal binder. So it's been used, the algatine has been used extensively around the Middle East, around land reclamation trials for bioremediation of poisoned swamps to try and get rid of the heavy metals. It's a really incredible algae. So the algae in these swamps, they absorb the heavy metals in the swamp and then get rid of the residue. There's heaps of published papers on algatine. It's like a really great daily preventative as an antioxidant and general heavy metal detoxification support. I'm a huge fan of broccoli sprout powder. It basically, instead of taking an antioxidant in a chemical form in a supplement, the broccoli sprout, because it's like a whole food supplement, it enhances the production of our own innate antioxidants in the body. It helps us make our own antioxidants. And it works on so many different levels, and it's generally very safe and well tolerated, really powerful detoxification and general health support. And also just, supporting gut health and microbiome health. You've got to have regular bowels, you've got to have strong digestion, you've got to have strong liver support. I might sound like a broken record from other videos I've done, but yeah, if you want more info about that, I can post links to videos I've already done. So in regards to treating specific heavy metal toxicities, I mean, you can't really just guess and take random supplements and chelators depending on what you think you have. It's important that you test and do not guess. So the best testing method I use with clients is the HTMA, the hair tissue mineral analysis by Interclinical Laboratories. They're based in Sydney. It's a really simple test. It requires hair from the back of the head, preferably close to the nape of the neck or the back of the head, because hair bioaccumulates metals efficiently over a 3-month period. So you need basically 3 centimeters, a 3 centimeter sample closest to the scalp. and this analyzes a whole range of heavy metals and minerals. You can, if you don't have any hair on your head, you can use pubic hair. That's not so much accurate for looking at mineral ratios, but it is useful for just looking at the heavy metals. You can use axillary hair, so under the arm, but there are problems there with deodorants. If you don't have any hair, you can take a toenail, which is accurate, except it basically tells you what's happening 12 months ago, as toenails take a much longer time to grow. So yeah, the National Institute of Integrative Medicine only uses interclinical labs in Sydney for heavy metal testing. The interclinical laboratories are from Trace Elements Incorporated, so they're the specialist heavy metal testing lab in Texas in the US. They've been around for about 30, 40 years. They've tested like over 1 million samples from people worldwide. They're extremely reliable and accurate, and their report is excellent, and the information they give you on the heavy metals and the mineral ratios and how to deal with those is really cool. And, you know, just working with the practitioner who can help you kind of implement the results depending on the context of your whole health. Many other labs I've learned also, before they take a sample, they rinse the hair, which doesn't affect the heavy metals, but it can affect the mineral status and ratios, which makes it kind of unreliable. But interclinical does not wash or rinse the hair sample. The reason hair is such a good indicator of heavy metals is that the hair traps and stores these elements between the strands of keratin. So keratin is the protein that makes up like 90 to 95% of hair tissue, and minerals and heavy metals both become attached to particular molecules in the hair that form a part of the protein structures of the hair strand. And since human hair grows, it grows at a rate of approximately 1 centimeter per month. The analysis of 3 to 4 centimeters of hair cut from the nape or the scalp represents what's been absorbed over a 3 to 4 month period. So some other testing I've learned that's quite useful, depending on the person in regards to your ability to detoxify heavy metals properly, is you can get genetic testing, like genetic detoxification profile. So you look at your genes responsible for all the detoxification pathways in the body. It's a nice thing to do, particularly if you're someone who has accumulated quite a lot of heavy metals upon testing, upon doing a HTMA, but especially anyone who is looking into getting their mercury amalgams removed, because it's quite a delicate procedure, and there are a small percentage of people who feel, excuse me, there's a small percentage of people who get significantly worse after getting their amalgams removed due to mercury poisoning the brain. It's not good. So these people typically have a significantly reduced phase 1 or 2 or 3 liver detoxification capacity. So if you're someone who's considering getting heavy metals removed, or you simply just want to like ramp up the effectiveness of your treatment protocol, you can get a genetic detoxification profile done for about, I think it's about $190. A test I've also learnt about to do, particularly if you're going to get your amalgams removed, and even particularly if you have a family history of neurodegenerative disorders such as Alzheimer's or Parkinson's, is apolipoprotein E genetic testing, or ApoE for short. Because recent research has revealed that a coding error in ApoE means you cannot excrete heavy metals efficiently. So ApoE it's a protein within the brain. It sits in the cerebrospinal fluid, and there are different types of ApoE. So there's ApoE1 and ApoE12, and there's many different kinds, but they all have a different capacity to get mercury out of the brain. And there's a particular type of ApoE called ApoE4, and ApoE4 cannot transport mercury out of the brain. Research also shows that autistic children have a very strong tendency towards ApoE4 proteins, and that those with ApoE4 have an 80% chance of developing Alzheimer's disease. So this is like super important and great information. So anyone considering amalgam removal really needs to first assess their genetic detox capabilities. I'd be checking your ApoE status. Also, if you have that family line of neurodegenerative conditions, because you're at serious risk of mercury poisoning the brain. Because, you know, like with amalgam removals, there's risk involved, like there is with any elective surgery. So you just want to be 100% sure of what's going on. So regardless of whether or not you do experience mental health symptoms, thyroid issues, autoimmunity, infertility, brain fog, unexplainable extreme fatigue, gut issues, like doing a HTMA and uncovering, like finding out your mineral status and especially your heavy metal status, it's something we should all consider doing, particularly because of the times we live in and our severely increased exposure to heavy metals. And the more, also because the more we learn about the role of our environment and environmental toxins, like I'm just talking about heavy metals, like I haven't even touched on other environmental chemicals like glyphosate and phthalates, and, you know, they're all a load on our digestive system and detox capabilities. Because we'll, you know, and also we're getting all this amazing info about genes and, you know, like MTHFR and whatever. But having a gene linked to a particular condition, it doesn't always mean you're doomed. A gene has to be expressed to affect your health. And genes are particularly triggered by environmental factors, of which there are many, but an often overlooked one, again, and crucial to identify, is heavy metals. So I did HTMA quite a while ago, and I was a previous smoker. I was smoking 1 to 2 packs a day. It's at one point in my life, a long time ago, and I had cadmium through the roof, which was kind of expected. And I also had semi-high levels of lead, which I could put into tap water, probably. Yeah, but I mean, I had a lot of health issues going on at the time. There are a lot of other factors involved with what I was experiencing, but at least, I mean, uncovering the heavy metals was really important, because if I didn't address that, I wouldn't have really healed or resolved my health issues as much as I was able to. So yeah, thanks for joining, everyone. Thanks, Joanna. Thanks for joining. It is super interesting. I could talk way more about it, but I have no idea how long I've been talking for. Yeah, I love Alkatine too, Amanda. Thanks for joining, and thanks for joining, Barrier. And yeah, I hope you all found this useful. I'm going to write a blog article about it soon in much more detail. But yeah, I mean, you know, if you haven't done an HTMA before and looked at your heavy metal status, I'd highly consider it. Any naturopath or nutritionist should be able to help you with it. And it's just something really awesome you can do as a form of preventative medicine. And yeah, but especially anyone out there who's, you know, got chronic anxiety, chronic depression, kids with behavioural disorders, like heavy metals, you've got to uncover if that is an issue, because if you do anything else and you haven't looked at that, it's all a band-aid. Like you've got to treat the root cause. That's the whole point of naturopathic medicine, functional medicine, integrated medicine. Like you've got to look at all the possible areas of what's going on and treat it, and treat the whole person. You know, I completely acknowledge there's a huge mental, emotional, psychological, metaphysical aspect to mental health. But, you know, someone could be doing all of that work in the world, but they've got like toxic levels of heavy metals. And until you address that, they're not going to completely heal. So yeah, just coming back to that holistic approach. And yeah, thanks everyone. Have a good night, and I'll chat to you soon. Bye.